Hey everyone, today's story is the story of the Sea Maiden. There was once a poor old fisherman, and one year he was not getting much fish. On a day of days, while he was fishing, there rose a sea maiden at the side of his boat, and she asked him,
"Are you getting much fish?"
The old man answered and said, "No."
"What reward would you give me for sending plenty of fish to you?"
I have not much to spare."
"Will you give me your first son?"
"I would give you that, were I to have a son."
"Then go home, and remember when your son is 20 years of age, and you, yourself, will get plenty of fish after this."
Everything happened as the Sea Maiden said, and he got plenty of fish. But when the end of 20 years was nearing, the old man was growing more and more sorrowful and heavy-hearted, while he counted each day as it came. He had rest neither day or night. The son asked his father one day, "Is anyone troubling you?" The old man said, "Someone is, but that's not to do with you or anyone else." The lad said, "I must know what it is." His father told him what had happened with the Sea Maiden. "Don't let that bother you. I will go willingly." "You shall not. You shall not go, my son. I don't care if I never catch another fish." "If you will not let me go, then go to the smith, and let the smith make me a great strong sword, and I will go seek my fortune." His father went to the smith, and the smith made a weak sword for him. His father came home with the sword. The lad grasped it and gave it a shake or two, and it flew into 100 splinters. He asked his father to go to the smith and get him another sword, in which there should be twice as much weight. And so his father did. And the same thing happened to the next sword as well. Back went the old man to the smith, and the smith made a great sword. A sword unlike any he had made before.
"Here is your sword,"
said the smith.
"The man who wields this sword must be strong."
The old man gave the sword to his son. He gave it a shake or two. "This will do. It's high time now to travel on my way." On the next morning, he put a saddle on a black horse that his father had and was off for his adventure. When he went on a bit, he fell in with a carcass of a sheep beside the road, and there was a great black dog, a falcon, and an otter, and they were quarreling over the spoil. So they asked him to divide it for them. He came down off the horse. He divided the carcass amongst the three. 3 shares to the dog, 2 shares to the otter, and a share to the falcon. "For this," said the dog, "if you ever need swiftness of foot or sharpness of tooth, I'll be at your side." The otter said,
"If the swimming of foot on the ground of a pool can help, I'll be at your side."
Then the falcon said, "If you ever need the swiftness of a wing or crook of a claw, I will be at your side." On this he went onward, till he reached a king's house, and he took service to be a herd, and his wages were to be according to the milk of the cattle. He went away with the cattle, and the grazing was bare. In the evening when he took them home, they had not much milk. The place was so bare, and his meat and drink were not much that night. On the next day, he went on further with them, and at last he came to a place exceedingly grassy, in a green glen, like he had never seen before. But about the time when he should drive the cattle homewards, who should he see coming? But a great giant, with a sword in his hand.
"What are you doing on my land?"
says the giant.
"Those cattle are mine. They're on my land, and you are too."
He drew the great clean sweeping sword, and he neared the giant. He swung his sword at the giant, and the giant realized he was no match for the son and ran away.
"You can keep the land. Just don't hurt me."
The son leaped on the black horse, and he went to look for the giant's house. When he found it, he went in, and in the castle there was money aplenty, and dresses of each kind in the wardrobe, with gold and silver, and each thing finer than the other. When it was almost night, he took himself to the king's house, but he didn't take one thing from the giant's house. And when the cattle were milked this night, there was lots of milk. This time he had plenty of meat and drink, and the king was hugely pleased that he had caught such a herd. He went on for a time in this way, but at last the glen grew bare of grass, and the grazing was not so good. So he thought he would go a little further forward, in on the giant's land, and he found a great park of grass. He returned for the cattle, and he put them into the park. It was only a short time grazing in the park, when a great wild giant came full of rage and madness.
"Hi ha," said the giant. "Get off my land, or I will make you."
"Easier said than done. Go ahead. Make me." And at each other they went. After a while it seemed as if the giant would get the victory over the son. Then he called on the dog, and with one spring the black dog caught the giant by the neck and swiftly the son held his great sword next to the giant. "You leave, and never come back." The giant did exactly that. He went home very tired this night. The next day he went to the castle. When he reached the door, a little flattering carlin met him standing in the door.
All hail, and good luck to the fisher's son. I myself am pleased to see you. It is a great honor for this kingdom that you have come here. Go in.
"After you, crone. I do not need flattery. Go in and let's hear your speech." In went the crone, and when his back was to him, he drew his sword. But the sword flew out of his hand, and the swift crone turned to attack. The dog sprang on the crone, and he struck the generous dog with the club of magic, and there he lay. But the son struggled to hold on to the club of magic, and with one blow on the top of the head, he was on the ground. He went forward, up a little, and there was gold and silver, each thing more precious than the other in the crone's castle. He went back to the king's house, and there was rejoicing. He followed herding in this way for a time. But one night, after he came home, instead of getting an all hail and good luck from the dairymaid, all were crying. He asked why everyone was crying. The dairymaid said,
"There is a great beast with 3 heads in the loch, and it must get someone every year. And the lot had come this year for the king's daughter. And at midday tomorrow, she is to meet the beast at the upper end of the loch. But there is a great suitor who is going to rescue her."
"What suitor is that?"
"Oh, he is a great general of arms. And when he kills the beast, he will marry the king's daughter. For the king has said, whoever saves his daughter should get to marry her."
The next day, when the time grew near, the king's daughter and this hero of arms went to give a meeting to the beast, and they reached the black rock at the upper end of the loch. They were but a short time there when the beast stirred in the midst of the loch. But when the general saw this terror of a beast with 3 heads, he took fright, and he slunk away, and he hid himself. And the king's daughter was frightened and trembling, with no one at all to save her. Suddenly, she saw a handsome youth riding a black horse and coming that way. He was marvelously arrayed and fully armed, and his black dog moved right beside him. "Why are you frightened?" said the youth.
"The beast is coming to take me,"
said the king's daughter. "No,
"The last champion has fled."
I will go and slay this beast." And to meet the beast he went, with his sword and his dog. But there was a spluttering and a splashing between himself and the beast. The dog kept doing all he could, and the king's daughter was paralyzed by fear of the noise of the beast. One of them would now be under, and now above. But at last, he cut one of the heads off it. It gave one roar, and in a twinkling, it went out of sight.
"Good luck, and Victor follow you. I am safe for one night, but the beast will come again, and again, until the other 2 heads come off it."
He caught the beast's head, and he drew a knot through it, and he told her to bring it with her tomorrow. She gave him a gold ring, and went home with the head on her shoulder, and the youth betook himself to the cows. But she had not gone far when this great general saw her, and he said to her,
"I will hurt you if you do not say it was me who took the head off the beast."
"Oh, I will say it. Who else took the head off the beast but you?"
They reached the king's house, and the head was on the general's shoulder. But here was rejoicing, that she had come home alive and whole, and this great captain with the beast's head in hand. The next day they went away, and there was no question at all but that this hero would save the king's daughter. They reached the same place, and they were not long there when the fearful beast stirred in the midst of the loch. And the hero slunk away as he did the day before. But it was not long after this when the man on the black horse came with another dress on. No matter, she knew that it was the very same lad.
"I am pleased to see you. I am in hopes you will handle your great sword today, as you did yesterday."
But they were not long there when they saw the beast steaming in the midst of the loch. At once he went to meet the beast, but there was Clupperstitch and Clapperstitch, spluttering, splashing, raving, and roaring on the beast. They kept it at bay for a long time, and at night he cut another head off the beast. He put it on the knot and gave it to her. She gave him one of her earrings this time, and he leaped on the back of the black horse and took himself to the herding. The king's daughter went home with the heads. The general met her and took the heads from her, and he said to her that she must say that it was he who took the head off the beast this time again.
"Who else took the head off the beast but you?"
They reached the king's house with the heads. Then there was joy and gladness. About the same time on the next day, the two went away. The officer hid himself as he usually did. The king's daughter took herself to the bank of the loch. The hero on the black horse came. And if roaring and raving were on the beast on the days that were past, this day it was horrible. But no matter. He took the third head off the beast and drew it through the knot and gave it to her. She gave him her other earring. And then she went home with the heads. When they reached the king's house, all were full of smiles, and the general was to marry the king's daughter the next day. The wedding was going on, and everyone about the castle longing till the priest should come. But when the priest came, she would marry only the one who could take the heads off the knot without cutting it.
"Who should take the heads off the knot, but the man that put the heads on?"
said the king. The general tried them, but he could not loosen them. And at last there was no one about the house that had tried to take the heads off the knot, but they could not. The king asked if there was anyone else about the house that would try to take the heads off the knot. They said that the herder had not tried them yet. They called for him, and he came. He grabbed the heads.
"Stop! The man that took the heads off the beast has my ring and my 2 earrings.
The youth put his hand in his pocket and threw them on the board.
"This is the man,"
said the king's daughter. The king was not so pleased when he saw that it was the herder who was to marry his daughter, but he ordered that he should be put in a better dress. But his daughter spoke, and she said that he had a dress as fine as any that ever was in his castle. And then it happened. The herd put on the giant's golden dress, and they married that same day. They were now married, and everything went on well. But one day, and it was the day when his father had promised him to the sea maiden, they were sitting by the side of the loch, and lo and behold, she came and took him away, to the loch, without leave or asking. The king's daughter was now sad. She always had her eye on the loch, looking for her husband. An old soothsayer met her, and he told how it had befallen her married mate. Then he told her the thing to do to save her mate, and that she did. She took her harp to the seashore, and sat and played. And the sea maiden came up to listen. For sea maidens are fonder of music than all other creatures. But when the wife saw the sea maiden, she stopped. The sea maiden said,
"Play on."
"No, not till I see my man again."
So the sea maiden put up his head out of the loch. Then the princess played again and stopped, till the sea maiden put him up to the waist. Then the princess played and stopped again. And this time the sea maiden put him all out of the loch. And he called on the falcon and became one and flew on shore. But the sea maiden took the princess. Sad was everyone that night in town. Her man was as sad as ever, and wandering up and down the banks of the loch by day and night. Then the old soothsayer met him. The soothsayer told him there was no way of killing the sea maiden but one way, and this is it.
In the island that is in the midst of the loch is the white-footed hind of the slenderest legs and the swiftest step. And though she be caught, there will spring a hoodie out of her. And though the hoodie should be caught, there will spring a trout out of her. But there is an egg in the mouth of the trout, and the soul of the sea maiden is in the egg. And if the egg breaks, she is no more.
Now there was no way of getting to this island, for the sea maiden would sink each boat and raft that would go on the loch. He thought he would try to leap the strait with the black horse, and so he did. The black horse leaped the strait. He saw the hind, and he let the black dog after her. But when he was on one side of the island, the hind would be on the other side.
Oh, if only the black dog were here.
In a flash, the grateful dog was at his side, and after the hind he went, and they were not long in bringing her to earth. But he no sooner caught her than a hoodie sprang out of her.
If only the falcon were here.
Instantly the falcon appeared, and was after the hoodie, and was not long putting her to earth. And as the hoodie fell on the bank of the loch, out of her jumps the trout.
Otter.
The otter was at his side, and out on the loch he leaped, and brought the trout from the midst of the loch. But no sooner was the otter on shore with the trout than the egg came from his mouth. The lad sprang and put his foot on it. Then the sea maiden appeared, and she said,
"Break not the egg, and you shall get all you ask."
Deliver to me my wife.
In the wink of an eye she was by his side. When he got a hold of her, in both his hands, he let his foot down on the egg. That was the last they ever saw of the sea maiden. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you like the stories, hit the subscribe button, and you'll get a notification next Friday when the next story comes out.